Hi all, welcome back to Mathematics with Mr. Charles. We are continuing to look at numbers and number sense. Specifically, we will be looking at real-life problems involving integers. Our learning objective today is to solve real-life problems involving integers. Okay, we have our first question. We're going to look at three questions today. The first question states that the temperatures in the USA on a January day were as follows. In Nashville, Tennessee, the temperature was 3 degrees Celsius. Okay. In Johnson, Iowa, the temperature was -8 degrees Celsius. Okay. In New York, the temperature was -1 degree Celsius. Part A. Which place was the coldest? Okay. Before we answer the question, let's draw a number line. So on the number line, we have 0 here. Negative numbers would come to the left of 0. So here we would have -1. Okay. And somewhere here, I'm approximating would be -8. Okay. And all the other numbers would be in between. Somewhere right around here would be 3. So notice that the number to the farthest left is the lowest. Okay, and that's -8. And the lower the number, the colder the temperature would be. So -8 degrees Celsius was in Johnson, Iowa. So the place with the coldest temperature was Johnson, Iowa. Okay, Johnson. J-O. Now, part B of the question asks, how much colder was New York than Nashville? The temperature in New York was -1 degree Celsius. Okay, than Nashville. Nashville was 3 degrees Celsius. So let's fill up the blank spaces. This is -1, this is 0. Somewhere here would be 1, then we would have 2. Okay, 1, 2. So to find out how much colder the temperature was in New York, we have to move, okay, move to the right. So from New York, we're moving 1, 2, 3, 4 places. Okay, and since we move 4 places to the right, the temperature was 4 degrees colder. Okay, 4 degrees Celsius colder. 4 degrees Celsius colder. Okay, in New York. Right? And that's the answer there. Next question. Consider the numbers below. -5, -3, 1, 2, 7. Which two numbers add up to -2? Okay, we're gonna draw a number line first. Okay, and I would draw it like that. We have -5, -4, and I'm putting all the numbers in between. -3. Oh, I need to write smaller than that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and draw the number line. Okay, this is our number line. Now we want to find out which two numbers add up to -2. So we're gonna use the method of trial and error. So let's try -5 plus -3. Okay, if we have -5, okay, plus -3, okay, would that give us -2? Well, let's see. -5 is the first part, so we must start at -5. Okay, that's right here. And then the second part is plus, so it tells us that we have to move to the right. However, since the third part of the expression is negative, we would have to move in the reverse direction. And we'd have to move 3 places in the reverse direction. Okay? So that would take us -5, -6, -7, -8. Okay, so since we get -8, the two numbers cannot be -5 and -3 because adding both of them would give us -8. Let's try -3 and +1. Okay, -3 plus 1. So since it's -3 plus 1, then we have to start at -3. Let me use a different color ink. I wouldn't use the blue. We would have to start at -3 right here. The second part is positive, so we have to move to the right. Okay. Then the third part is 1, so we have to move 1 place to the right. Okay. So that gives us -2. So -3 plus 1 is -2. So that's our answer there. So which two numbers adds up to -2? It's -3 and 1, +1. Okay, and that's our answer. Good. The second part of the question asks which two numbers when multiplied gives an answer of -6. Now, just right off the top, we know that the only two pairs of numbers that would give us 6 when we multiply them would be 3 and 2 and 1 and 6. Okay, so in the set of numbers here, we have -3, we have 2, we have 1, but we do not have 6. So we know it must be 3 and 2, and one of them have to be negative for us to get a negative result, because when you multiply two integers that are of different signs, the answer would always be negative. So negative by positive is negative, or positive by negative is negative. So the answer would have to be -3, okay, and +2. That's the only two numbers here that would give us, okay, that would give us -6 when we multiply them. Part C of the question asks which two numbers when multiplied give an answer of 15. Okay, to get 15, we either have to multiply 1 by 15 or 3 by 5. Well, we have -3 and -5. Negative times negative is positive, so we will get positive 15. Okay, we will get positive 15. So the answer is -5, okay, and -3. That these are the only two numbers there we can multiply to get positive 15. Okay, good. Let's continue. Question number 3. Here are the temperatures in London over a 24-hour period. So we have the table with the temperatures beneath here. Up here we have the time. Okay, this is the time. And these values down here represent the temperature in degrees Celsius at the different time periods. So part A asks how much did the temperature rise between 0 hours and 400 hours. So this is 0 here and this is 4 here. So from 0 to 4, the temperature started at -4. Okay, and at 400 hours it was at -2. So if we were to fill up all the numbers between, we have -3. Okay, 1 between. So We want to find out how much did the temperature rise. So a rise would mean we are going to the right. Okay, so we move in 1, 2 places. So since we move 2 places from -4 to get to -2, okay, there was a general rise in temperature of 2 degrees Celsius, okay, between 0 hours and 400 hours. And that's our answer there, because we moved 2 places to the right. Now part B asks, how much did the temperature fall between 1200 hours and 2000 hours? Okay, so this is 1200 hours here, this is 2000 hours here. So we are going, let me use a different color ink. We are going from 4, and I should write the 4 to the right because positive numbers to the right. We are going from 4 to -1. Okay, 4 to -1. -1. So between 4 and -1, you have 0, you have 1, 2, 3, and you have 4. Okay, I'll just erase this 4 here. Okay, now how much did the temperature drop? So since there is a drop in temperature, we would have to move left, okay, because there is a drop in temperature. So we move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the left. So the drop in temperature between 1200 hours and 2000 hours is 5 degrees Celsius. 5 degrees Celsius. That's a drop in temperature between 1200 hours and 2000 hours. Part C, at what time was the temperature the coldest? Okay, the coldest temperature, the time would correspond to the lowest number. Okay, and the lowest of all these numbers for temperature here is -6. So since the lowest number is -6, that's the lowest temperature, so that's the coldest temperature. So the time that corresponds with the coldest temperature is 0200 hours. Okay, 0200 hours. Okay, and that is the time that corresponds with the coldest temperature. Good. Now we have 2 more parts to that question. Part D asks, in which 2-hour period did the temperature rise the most? So which 2-hour period? Well, first we have to look at the values and determine where there was a rise, because not every time the temperature had risen. Okay, not every time the temperature had risen. Generally there was a rise in temperature from -4 to -2. That's a rise because -4 is less than -2. Okay, so let me get a different color ink here. I'll use black. There was a rise between -6 and -2. Okay, because -6 is greater than is less than -2. There was also a rise between -3 and -1. There was another rise between -1 and 2. Then there was another rise between 2 and 4. There was a rise between 4 and 5. Okay, and that was the last rise between 4 and 5. Good, so we have to find out the size of those rise in temperatures. Okay, so between -6 and 2. Okay, so we have -6, between -6 and -2. So we have -6, -5. So these are the numbers, okay, between -6 and -2. And if we are to move, we would move 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the right. Okay, remember I stated when you are moving to the right, that would be a rise in temperature. So since you move 4 places to the right, okay, the rise in temperature was 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, 4 degrees Celsius. Let's look at the others. We also had a rise between -3 and -1. So -3, -2, -1. Okay, these are all the numbers from -3 to -1. We would move 2 places. So the rise in temperature would be 2 degrees Celsius. 2 degrees Celsius. Okay. Then we also had a rise between -1 and +2. -1 and +2. Okay, the numbers between are 0 and 1. So the rise, let's count: 1, 2, 3 degrees Celsius rise. Okay, in temperature. 3 degrees Celsius rise. Then the next rise was from 2 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, the number between is 3. So let's count the rise in temperature. 1, 2. Okay, so 2 degrees Celsius rise. Okay, 2 degrees Celsius rise. And then the last rise in temperature was from 4 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius. There is no number in between, so the rise is 1 degree Celsius because you move 1 place to the right. Okay, good. So that would be 1 degree Celsius rise. Okay, good. So the rise would be the number of places you move from the initial temperature to the final temperature. So here between -6, okay, let me get a different color ink. Between -6 and -2, you had a 4 degrees Celsius rise. Between -3 and -1, you had a 2 degrees Celsius rise. Between -1 and +2, you had a 3 degrees Celsius rise. Between +2 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius, you had a 2 degrees Celsius rise. And finally, between 4 degrees Celsius and 5 degrees Celsius, you had a 1 degree Celsius rise. So the 2-hour period that had the highest temperature rise was -6 to -2. Okay, -6 to -2. Okay, and that is this 2-hour period here. Okay, -6 to -2. Right, that's our answer. So I'll put the answer in a different color ink, red. So the answer is the 2. So the greatest rise was from 200. Okay, from 200 hours, okay, to 400 hours. Okay, that's the greatest rise in temperature. That's the time when you had the greatest rise in temperature, 200 hours to 400 hours. Okay, and if you go back, you will notice that at 200 hours, the temperature was -6. At 400 hours, temperature was -2. So that is the period here we're looking at. Okay, good. Now the last question says between 200 hours and 700 hours, the temperature rose by 5 degrees Celsius. What was the temperature at 700 hours? So if there is a rising temperature, that means you are adding. So the temperature between 200 hours and 700 hours, the rise was 5 degrees Celsius. So whatever the temperature is at 200 hours, you have to add 5 to that. Okay, you have to add 5 to that. So let's go back and look at what the temperature was at 200 hours, -6 degrees Celsius. So we have to add 5 to negative 6. So negative 6 plus 5, the first part of that expression is negative 6. So we must start at negative 6. Okay, we must start at negative 6. And then the second part is plus, which means we would be moving to the right. Okay, the third part is 5, so we'll be moving 5 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, notice I started at 6 and I moved 5 places to the right. So at each of these points or location, you're supposed to have a number, and we're going to put in the number, okay, according to the pattern. So negative 5, after negative 6 is negative 5, then negative 4, okay, negative 3, negative 2, and then finally negative 1. So 5 places to the right would land us at negative 1. Okay, negative 1. And that would be the temperature. The question asks what was the temperature at 700 hours. That would be negative 1 degrees Celsius. Okay, so I'll write it down here in a different color ink. Okay, I'll use blue. Okay, so the temperature at 700 hours, the temperature at 700 hours was negative 1 degree Celsius. Okay, okay, and that's our answer. Okay, that's our answer. Good. So this is how you go about solving real life problems involving integers. So that's all for today's video. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for being my audience. Do enjoy.